Welcome back. I'm Dr. Matt.
And I'm Dr. Jess.
And we're here on site at EV True Value Hardware to talk about proper body and lifting mechanics and also workplace setup.
So let's get started with no pain is gain.
The old adage is wrong. Pain is not a reward for hard work, nor is it an unavoidable consequence of aging. Let Dr. Jess and Dr. Matt be your guides on the path to a fuller life with less pain on No Pain is Gain.
All right, Andy, can you tell us a little bit more about what your team members or staff members have to lift or move on a daily basis?
Sure, absolutely. Everything is seasonal for us, whether it's wintertime, we have the 50-pound bags of winter salt products, whether it's calcium, magnesium, rock salt. On a snowy day, they'll lift 2,000 bags in one day, so they get pretty tired.
Absolutely.
Lifting, whether bending over, pulling them off pallets, dropping them off their shoulders, lifting them into trucks, put them into car trunks. And during the summertime, it's the same thing, but with concrete mix, bags of concrete and bags of sand and bags of fertilizer. So heavy things wise, it's 50, 60 pounds. We go upward of 70-pound bags of sand. We even have 97-pound bags of cement.
Okay.
So there's some pretty heavy things that we lift throughout the day itself, every day.
Okay.
Whether it's spring, summer, fall, winter, we still have to lift some of those heavy bags on it. So there are times that I'll go home at the end of the day and I'll be a little sore on the back or so forth, whether you're just moving too quick and you're lifting 10, 12 bags at a time and you forget the motions of the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. So there's days I suffer, there's days my staff suffers. So.
Yeah. Well, we're here today to maybe show you guys some of the best ways for lifting heavy items off of the floor, but also giving you just some reminders and tips on, grab someone, use two people, and instead of the bending and turning, bend, pick it up, turn, take it to the place so you're not twisting at your back. So we're going to go over some of these techniques, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you guys moving forward.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we're here with Dr. Matt, and we're going to first show you what we typically see that actually could potentially lead to some back pain and other injuries. So this is what you should not do. Okay.
Why not?
So
That looked fine to me.
yes. Well, one thing that's happening is he's twisting really a lot at his torso and with a heavier weight and reaching. Look how far he's away from the car to reach to toss that in. That's going to put a lot of tension on the spine. The right thing to do would be to face the object, get it close to your body. Yep, pull it in, then take it, load it, get close to it, and then lower with your legs. That there will take the stress off. Now, it might add an extra second
Yeah, I was going
to
to say,
your...
it really didn't take any longer to do it.
Yes, but that is the best way that you could do to really prevent any sort of injury with the back.
Does that help with him to bang his head on the trunk of the car, too?
No, did you hit your head?
Not yet, but I was waiting for it to happen.
No, not yet. But yeah, you would definitely have to use your legs to make sure that you do not hit your head.
And now, does this matter with some of the bags that our staff lists are 25-pound bags, some of them are 50-pound bags. So the motion is the same, or do you have to adjust when you have different weights of objects you're picking up?
No, the motion is the same. You really want to just get into the habit of good form so that when you have light, heavy, any type, you could probably get away with a lighter bag of like 10 pounds to do something of that nature if you have a very good solid core. But at this point of the game, the repetition is going to be what's the safest thing for when you're going into lifting heavier bags.
Okay, now how about the homeowners themselves who are buying the products and then they're getting home and they got to reach in their car to pull it out to put it back into their garage or shop? Does, the facing the product again and lifting it out of the trunk. You're doing everything exactly just in reverse.
You got it. Yep. So Matt, let's actually take that bag and let's actually lower it to the floor. So people sometimes will put it on their garage floor.
A lot of people do.
So getting that bag close, yep, and then lowering it to the floor.
Okay.
You got it. Perfect. You can see that he's using his hips and more of his legs. The other thing which we'll go into next is picking it up from the floor and how you can do that so you don't hurt your back. So 2 common things that we see people do when lifting items from the floor is the concept of bending from their back. So this one is, again, something that we do not recommend doing because this will definitely lead to injury. And then lifting. So
that's just a straight back lift
correct.
with your back
your legs,
and arm.
Yes. Now, the other thing that everyone hears, bend with your knees. Bend with your knees to lift things up. But what happens is that people truly are bending with their knees and dropping from here, which again puts so much stress to the spine based off the mechanics and how everything starts to load. So the one thing you would have to start to learn to do, the best way to do it, is you need a hip hinge where if you stick your hips out and back, that starts to lower you down. That's truly bending with your legs, and that's how you get up.
That makes sense.
So
yeah, it makes sense.
So
I mean, I've always just
bend with your
bend
knees.
with my knees and pick it up, and
but you want to think hips back, which lowers you to it, protects your legs, protects your back, protects your knee joints, and then go. If you're lifting from just your knees, you're going to eventually then have even knee problems or back problems or something else from the repetitive loading.
probably helps you to even lift something a little heavier than you think you can handle
Correct.
also.
Yes, because the glutes and the hamstrings are made for you to to lift something off the ground. It does not, the mechanics from here does not allow for that force production to be produced from your hamstrings when you are bending at the knees. So hip hinge is key.
Okay, well, is there, I mean, for homeowners, a lot of homeowners this time of year will buy a lot of salt.
Yes.
With it being coming into the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be considering buying smaller bags than bigger bags, 225-pound bags than 50s? Or is there ages that come into play with this, or it really doesn't matter on the age?
No, I think it matters. You have to know yourself and what you're capable of lifting. Always on the safer side. If you are not someone who is used to lifting or have the strength to support what you need to do, then yeah, 2 smaller bags is obviously the safer thing to do. But you don't have to go that route if, you know, you're fit, you're physically active, and you're lifting with the right mechanics. You can do the 50-pound bag. You just have to be mindful of how you approach it.
Do you find that people who would maybe buy 2 smaller bags then say, well, this is so light, I don't need to worry about the mechanics?
Correct. And that's the same kind of
That's
thing.
still a big no-no.
Correct. And that's kind of where, you know, even though it's lighter, you still have to get into the habit of good form so that it just carries over into the heavier things in your other daily tasks.
Those hips are important, huh?
They are. They really are.
Okay. All right. Now you're telling me there's a right way and a wrong way to use a dolly?
There is, especially when it starts to become extra heavy. We always say you would want to push before you pull something. So this goes even beyond a dolly. So if there's ever an option to pull a cart or push a cart, make sure you are pushing, because that way you can get your body behind it and use the force from your body weight to get it moving forward versus pulling through your spine. So I will let Dr. Matt show you how pushing this, exactly, is going to be significantly easier on the body than pulling, and it's going to put all the pressure on the spine that way.
That's a new one on me. I didn't know that one.
Again,
I just thought a dolly, it's on wheels. It's going to help you no matter what you're doing. But
and it does. It does. It definitely does. But I think something...
I mean, this is 4-wheel carts, wheelbarrows, with, anything in our industry. It's always better to push than to pull.
Correct. Yes. I would say that is definitely the concept to take away here. Now, there are certain situations where I'm thinking of a wheelbarrow where if you have to walk downhill and it's behind you like this, But again, you never want to pull anything downhill. So
I don't.
Yeah. So there is a little bit of variety that can happen there. But again, big takeaways. If you have an option to push or pull, you're better off pushing.
Okay.
And then I could just add one thing in too, just going off of the body mechanics. It's more of a safety concern too, because a lot of times if you're pulling the cart, you don't see what's behind you,
Right.
and then you
You're
start
hit.
twisting and turning. So kind of going off of what Dr. Jess said, there is a body mechanics aspect to it, but then there is a safety component too. And then the more you add weight, the more that safety becomes a little bit impacted. So like I said, the general rule of thumb is push is better than pull for the most part.
Good. All right, Matt, a lot of my employees use workstations. So here in the warehouse, we have some work counters, but also in our shops in different areas and so forth, we have the different work counters and the height of the individual, the height of the chair, how far out the work counter is. I mean, I'm sure a lot of that comes into play with proper posture or use sitting at the counters on it. So what's the difference?
Yeah, so absolutely, like you said, there's a lot of different variables that play a factor. It's not only the height of the desk, the height of the chair, the body composition of the person. So we try to take all those into account when we give our best recommendation on setup. Once again, a lot of this stuff in the short term, if you're just sitting at a computer for 15, 20 minutes, you might be able to get away with it if it's not the optimal setup.
Right.
But if someone's sitting there for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours out of the day, you want to make sure that setup and the ergonomics are as optimal as possible. That way we don't develop back pain or hip pain or neck pain. So essentially what we like to try to do is we try to start from the ground up. Most important part is the foundation, just like a house. So if we kind of take a look at Dr. Jess's setup right here, we can see that her feet aren't even hitting the ground.
Is that good or bad?
That's bad.
That's bad.
So what that's going to do, she's not going to have any support through her feet. This is automatically going to start to put more stress through her lumbar spine, through her back. So she's not getting any of that support coming from the ground. So right away, we can kind of tell that the height of this chair is probably too high to start. So there's a rule that we like to follow. It's called the 90-90 rule. Essentially what we want to do is we want to see a 90-degree angle at the knee and then a 90-degree angle at the hip with her feet flat on the floor. So that's going to get her lower quarter in a good posture.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we would start in terms of the height of the chair, is looking to see if she can achieve that 90-90 position with her feet flat on the floor.
Okay. Now with a lot of counter heights, especially in shops or warehouses, you can't adjust the counter height. So
Yes.
you have to have your chair high enough so you're not working up like
Exactly.
this.
Yep.
So is it advisable to have a little box to put your feet on? And whether it's a wooden box, a cardboard box, something sturdy enough so your feet are just elevated on there. Or I know there's railings to put your legs on, but then as I could see with Jess, she doesn't have that 90 degree.
Correct, yeah.
So that's bad.
Potentially, yeah. Like you said, it's more of a cumulative thing. If she's just sitting there in the short term, she might be able to get away with it. But the longer that it goes on, the longer that you sit there day after day, week after week, month after month, you just increase that risk of having an injury or developing some sort of pain. So, yeah.
Now with your knees bent like that constantly, what does that put the strain on? The back or the knee or
So
the hips or all of it?
It all depends. If her knee is really flexed past that 90-degree mark, yeah, it could start to put a lot of tension on the front of the knee. So she might develop knee pain. Somebody else might develop back pain. There's really no rhyme or reason. It's just over time, if we're putting those stresses on the joints for a prolonged period of time, at some point something is going to hurt. So like you said, it might be something as simple as just putting a cardboard box down just to support the feet, or
Okay.
using the railing of the chair. You don't have to go out and buy this fancy equipment. It's just having that understanding of where your body should be positioned.
And I think something to add is you have to understand everyone is individual and how they come to work, right? They might have more tight hamstrings than someone else. So tighter hamstrings is going to require them to shorten and bend their knees, but then it's going to take and pull on their back under this way. So where someone else might not have tight hamstrings, but they might have something else going on that bending at the knee might be more irritable. So when Matt says it all depends, it's because it's on the individual and what they're coming in with already predisposed. So finding those optimal movements or those optimal alignments is just going to eliminate any sort of, from the variables of what people come in with.
So is that part of your working with a new client, trying to figure out where that pain is coming from?
Correct, exactly. That's how it all ties in.
Now, is putting it a workstation like this in the height, does that, depending on how far your arm is up
Yep.
and the angle of your wrist, that all
Oh, yeah.
comes into play
And we're
also?
going to go into that. So you're exactly right. Like Dr. Matt says, you got to start at the feet and work your way up. If you can't physically change your workstation, then
Right.
we mold your workstation to fit you. So the number one thing would be is to get a box or something to prop my legs up so that I have a support system here. And then my hip would be at 90, and I'll let Dr. Matt continue with working, forward with the arms, the elbows, and how that plays a huge role.
Okay.
Yeah, so going off of that, we've kind of looked at the lower quarter from the hips down to the feet. So now let's say that this is the desk that Dr. Jess has to work at. If we kind of take a look at the upper extremity now, we can see how high this desk is in compared to her elbow. So once again, we kind of want to see a 90-degree bend at this elbow here to make sure that the upper extremity is in a good position. If I take a look at the position of the table and then her elbow is actually sitting below, so she's coming up at a little bit of an angle right here. What this is going to do, this is going to cause a lot of stress. So essentially everything is getting forced up into this position. How many people go home after working 8 hours a day and they say, I have neck pain or my shoulders are really, really tight? A lot of times it's because we're stuck in this position and the desk is essentially forcing us up into a little bit of elevation from the shoulders. Can lead to shoulder pain, neck pain, carpal tunnel either. So that's how we look at the position, or even typing, all those repetitive type of movements. If we don't have that good setup, you kind of put yourself at an increased risk for developing those types of problems. So that kind of looks at the upper extremity here. And then the final piece of the puzzle that we look at is the position of the monitor and then the position of the head. So if that computer is way above the head, once again, we're going to be forced into extension. So that neck is going to be back. It's going to put a lot of stress through the spine. If that computer's too low, we tend to hunch forward and fall into this position. So we like to have the middle of the screen pretty much right at eye level. And then this also falls back to...
So that's about the only thing we got right here.
Yeah, that's it. Now, how can you... Dr. Matt, can you show how we can change this so that my elbows can be at 90 without having to get a whole new workstation?
Yeah. We have the...
Lift the chair up.
Lift the chair. Well, yeah, we could lift the chair. Yeah, you can change the height of the chair, but then once again, that's going to impact the position of the feet too. So that kind of goes
We just
back
need a
to,
bigger box.
Yeah, goes back to that. So once again, it's almost like a domino effect. Once you start to address one thing, you can kind of see how it influences the other. So you have to have that global approach to it and know everything that you're looking for, because
Right.
one thing is going to impact the other. So really, that with the monitor, it's right at eye level, and that goes back to what Dr. Jess was saying, is some people are going to have longer torsos, or they're going to be taller, so it's not just generalized to everybody. You have to make it specific to that person's
Oh, and it's going to be up
workstation.
to the individual, because there's a lot of people share the same workstation. So,
Yeah.
you leave the workstation and somebody else moves into that workstation, they have to readjust that workstation
Yeah.
to fit them, their body, their height, so they're in a comfortable position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. It's a lot that goes into it.
Absolutely.
It really is. Okay, one of the other things that a lot of my staff does is, we have stuff floor to ceiling. Okay, we put a lot into this store. So I have a lot of employees that are going to reach. And I mean, yes, I have employees that are 5'5", I have employees that are 6'8". So some need ladders, some don't. But is there issues with always reaching for shelves?
Yeah, there definitely is, and like I said, kind of goes along with the lifting mechanics and the sitting mechanics. Is a lot of times we can get away with this stuff in the short term, but the more that you do it, the more risk you kind of run into of injuring yourself. So, sometimes it's more about working smarter as opposed to just working harder all the time. And what we see what Dr. Jess might do is, if she needs to get something off the top shelf, she might get up on her tippy toes. She might try to just knock the box over a little bit, catch it. Yeah, she might knock it on
done it.
herself. we've all
done
done
it.
it. We've all been
Absolutely,
guilty
we've
of
done
it. But once again, we just want to try to make sure that we're keeping the body in the safest position as possible. And
Okay.
we're not saying that you always have to get a big 6-foot ladder and climb all the way up to the top. But even if you just have a little step stool,
Yeah,
something that gets you a little closer.
Yeah, most people have step stools at home. So
Yeah.
whether it's at work or it's home, yes, I'm 6 foot. My wife is 5'5". So, in our kitchen especially, she has her step stool that she gets out to reach for it. So is there proper mechanics with using a step stool and reaching off the
So
shelf?
pretty much the same thing as any type of lifting mechanic is you want to try to get as close to the object that you're lifting as possible. So with
Okay.
this, Dr. Jess is getting pretty close to eye level, and then once she brings it down, she's keeping it close to her center of gravity, coming slowly down and then back. You just want to make sure that the step stool is nice and close to the object that you're
Okay.
reaching for. You don't want to have it on the other side of the hallway there and then be reaching across. So
Okay.
just get it nice and close. Make sure that you're not overextending once you get to the upright position, and then just keeping it close to your body. So once you get the step stool set up, it's pretty straightforward from there.
Good. Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you for that. Well, Dr. Matt, Dr. Jess, I want to thank you for coming in, stopping by the store today, and it helping me to learn the proper way of doing these so I could teach my staff the proper way of doing things. Because 50 years I've been here at the store, and I'd say I've done it wrong for about 50 years. So, but thank you for the education on it. I'm looking forward to lifting and twisting and bending a little better so I'm not as sore when I get home at night.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we appreciate you having us. It's an absolute pleasure educating the team, the community. So there you have it. Another episode of No Pain is Gain.